All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Last time we were here, we covered technically Kratos versus DMC4 Dante. That video's still not up yet at the time of this recording. It is up for members because members get access to all
No,
videos first. What?
that is not what it
Oh,
was. It was
right.
Kratos
It
in
replacing. Yes, he's
DMC4.
replacing DMC4 Dante. You right. You right. But yeah, no. So members have access to it right now. It'll be up public probably in a few hours from this recording. But we'll be continuing Bayonetta's story through God of War since, given that, now that more or less God of War's donezo for the time being, we felt it was appropriate to cover the Norse Pantheon as well. And also be, given how fast 2 and 3 ended, it'd be nice to give her through a few more protagonist swaps here before we decide to call quits with the God of War universe for the time being with her. And yeah, so now she finds herself in the Norse pantheon.
Yes, the way we will try to handle this is like much like all the examples. She was brought into the universe at the time the story begins. So we'll we'll jump ahead a little bit and say that it's like it's right before the what's it called? The funeral happens. Hold up.
Actually, what? Actually, so how about we just do it? How about we just have Bayonetta show up right when like Baldur shows up at the door? Like everyone's just chilling out. Bayonetta randomly swaps in with Kratos, and then Baldur just knocks on the door. So that way the
Yeah,
funeral
I could do that.
happens and everything. Atreus starts like getting ready for his
Well,
journey.
well, oh
Or
yeah, they are getting ready for the journey. I need to make sure because they are hastened to leave because Baldur shows up, but they are in the process of leaving. So yeah, Kratos just gets yeeted. Maybe we could just say he gets yeeted, and they have like 5 more minutes before Baldur shows up. Um, if you
yeah.
want, like I guess to explain the situation, but yeah, that's.
Well, I was gonna say
You
because
could just be like, yeah, I'm just I'm an acquaintance of your father. I helped him with a great many tasks and his compatriots back in his homeland.
she's all like,
My name is Bayonetta.
and
Of
I
course,
don't know what
Atreus
we're
is totally
doing.
not gonna. We'll go.
And it's like,
Go
and I
ahead.
don't know what I'm doing here this time because usually someone comes tells me by now. Then the knock comes.
And like and he'll just be like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, so generally, what happens is that I get pulled from my world into one of your worlds, and there's a task I have to accomplish. So, since you're the only one present here at the moment, I'm assuming you're going to tell me what exactly it is you need to be doing at this moment." And he's like, "Well, I have to deliver my mother's ashes. Like, what happened to my father? Oh, he'll be fine. He just got pulled somewhere else, just like I did.
I'm
He'll
sure
probably
he's
be
having
back
a
here after we
great
accomplish this."
time over there, wherever he's at.
uh,
It's been working out pretty well for me, so I'm sure it's been working out great for him.
but yeah, it'll just be like, well, we just have to deliver my mother's ashes to the highest peak in all of Midgar. She'd be like, right, Midgar.
That's Norse, right? I know that one.
Yeah, I've heard Norse terms before.
I've
There's some
seen
angels that are named
Marvel
like that.
movies.
She'd be like, what's Marvel? Like, don't worry about it. It's
Yes.
it'll take too long to explain. And then Balder just comes banging on the door and it's like, oh, it's like we have a guest.
I'll just open this door and hope nothing bad happens.
It's like, can I help you, random tattooed stranger?
Except this time, Balder will not say I thought you'd be taller because Bayonetta's actually a fucking Amazon.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, I thought you'd be.
I thought
Actually, I
you'd
don't
be
know what I was
male.
thinking, to be honest. Yeah, I thought you'd be male. I was like, oh, well, sorry to disappoint. Is there any? She'll just ask him like if I can help you, and then he'll just be like, well, uh, if I recall, he doesn't tell her he's looking for the giants, but he
No,
comes
they're
there
they're
with the intent
very
to
vague.
interrogate.
They're very vague about it. He says I'm after information, I think, or something like to that effect. And Kratos is of course, no, go fuck yourself. Have a nice day. And he's all like, well, if you're not gonna talk, then I'll check and see if someone else wants to talk inside there.
Yeah, so well he's saying just tell me what I want to know before he gets to open the door. Um so we'll just assume he might think it's strange. We'll just assume he assumes Bayo is a giant. Because he'll say the same lines. He'll be like, "You're a long way from home, are you?" He's like, "Well, you're not wrong. I certainly didn't take the scenic route."
Yes, and
Um,
yes, and then well, the problem is that I don't think does Balder start the confrontation or does Kratos fucking
yes,
hit him? Balder
yes, he
starts it.
does. He says, Kratos says, "What do you want?" And he's like, "You already know the answer to that." He's like, "Whatever you seek, I do not have it. You should move on." Um, and then
No,
he
I
says, just
don't
like,
think I
"Oh," he
will.
basically insults him, and then he's like, "You do not wish this fight, whatever you are." He's like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure you do." And then I'm pretty sure I do. And then Balder attacks him. So after a brief conversation, Balder's going to attack Bayo. Um, so, given that this is a protagonist swap, like always, we do mention that the character who is put here is in the stats, is put in the statistics position of the character. They're given their basic resistances, um, their dimensionality, whatnot, but they are not given
Yes.
like their physiology or their equipment or like stats in regards to their intelligence.
Yes. I think
So,
a little on that note, very briefly, because someone recently found the DMC3 Protag swap and was like, Kratos is 60 to out reversal. So I had to explain how Protag swap works, first of all, without just
we
outright saying it's like, um,
we explain it in every single protagonist swap.
when
Though there are a couple where we miss, but
when season one is over, I think we'll have like a bit of a podcast, like live chat thing, specifically discussing what changes if we gave actual scaling without the actual Protect Swap package very briefly, just like as a fun little end of season shenanigans. Because a lot of people probably
mhm.
would want to know like a little bit more of that answer. But yeah, on to subject at hand. Balder punches Bayonetta, and by punch Bayonetta I mean Bayonetta just turns into bats with A and then completely negates all damage
Because
and just flies past him.
and it's just like, oh, okay, so I guess we're doing this then. So I'll be clear here, like all Balder has in terms of his like arsenal is mainly just like,
Punching and like a few
well,
like energy magic attacks.
yeah, that and his immortality, which can prevent him from dying, allows
You
him to live
mean being
forever, and he can
impervious to
regenerate.
all damage, physical or magical? Which is
Well,
actually
it's specifically,
technically wrong. I mean, well, actually, no.
it is wrong.
The novel says he's impervious
It
to the Axis magic, right?
Well, that's not entirely true though. Like he can still get hit by the frost. It just doesn't do that much to him. It'd be more accurate to say he's resistant to it. But the resistance is like there's not too much of a meaningful difference between that and immunity.
Well, at least
I would
not by
just
God of
not
War's
I would
examples for
just not
sure.
use the term I would just not use the term immunity because that would not be accurate with how the novel describes it.
So before we go into this, because I know this is going to be brought up, we had to have a discussion regarding Bayonetta's weapons and abilities and determine if Baldur's immortality would even work on them. Because
Mm,
God of War has basically one system of power, and it's just a magic system. I think the gods' powers are also qualified as magic half the time.
they are
So
all
we
the time, actually.
we had to sit down and discuss it because, to be clear, even by the in-game information and like visual shown, Baldur's invulnerability is wrong because we see Kratos literally snap his fucking neck and he actually like is out for a few seconds. He just restores the he just like heals it.
Yes. The
So
novel clarifies
good.
further that it's just regeneration. You can actually damage the body. The damage just simply heals. So if I can just prove you can, you know, damage him more than what his healing factor has shown to regenerate, then he's gone.
Yes. But for the most part, just as well, for Bayonetta's case, because her basic weapons are magic and physical already, anything that comes from other sources that aren't just Umber and Witch or Lumen Sage related would qualify under a different system of energy that we are just going to argue would bypass the restriction.
Yeah. Or more specifically, it's that the curse is not designed to heal from them because it's designed to stop all things physical and like magical. But things like bazillions not magical. They're demonic, actually. In fact, their energy source comes from a specific um, ancient civilization in the Bayonetta-verse that has a completely different set of energy, and they were blessed more with demonic energy from the demons of Inferno, both of which would not be the same energy systems as what is used in Baldur's curses, or the Baldur curse, the one that was put on his body by his mother. Uh,
So
Basically, what sustains his immortality. So, yeah, Bazillions, he would not have resistance to Bazillions or the potency of what Brazilian provides.
yes, so basically we're going to be going about this two ways. Both potency is just far greater than what Baldur's healing factor is demonstrated to be shown, and that we would just have weapons that bypass it. So with that like sort of forward in mind, let's discuss the quote unquote boss battle.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go through the list of abilities that would get around this because I'll be honest, Baldur is not bringing anything to the table that Zeus or like Thanatos or certain characters in the Greek pantheon like
Well,
Ares
I was
didn't
gonna
bring. I
say
would argue all of those characters had better arsenals than him.
yes, like
Baldur's
Zeus.
main gimmick is just he just has a gimmick. His gimmick is I can't die. I'm like, okay, so if you can die, then is your arsenal just trash?
I mean, I'd argue Zeus's healing
Like,
factor is almost on par with Baldur's. It's just that like Zeus can die and not come back. Baldur like comes back from death, I guess.
yeah, yeah, but Zeus has like an actual arsenal. Baldur doesn't.
Yeah. So the point is that
So,
ultimately, anything we could have said beforehand has already appeared, and I'm going to mute myself for the time being. Mangler, continue.
yeah, so I would probably also say anything like Chernobog would fall into that category as well, because Chernobog just like literally uses just a weapon from hell with demonic energy, and it can specifically BFR you to Inferno. So that would be more than enough to get Baldur out of the Norse pantheon and effectively out of the game. Um, though I'll discuss the ramifications of that later. Technically, Baldur has shown that he is vulnerable to empathetic manipulation, or even to just his emotions being manipulated in general, because he literally goes to Helheim, and just by seeing visions of himself in the past, talking to his mother, he like breaks down and essentially cries. I know that is technically assaulting his mind, but I want to point out that like that was enough for him to just like collapse like that. So like any direct attack on his emotions should be more than enough to affect him, since he has not demonstrated resistance to that. And most characters in the God of War verse have demonstrated a direct weakness to that. It has been very effective. And he's been hit by things that are not empathetic manipulation, but result in essentially the same outcome, which is just like massive emotional distress for him. So every Umbran witch has the ability to manipulate empathy via like their magic attacks. So she can literally just zone him with Scarborough Fair or Love is Blue, whatever you want to give her. Again, complete and safe win cons from a distance with little to no cost. Um,
Yes, and that's not including the numerous other options, and that's not going into once again Bayonetta's numerous defensive options. Again, Baldur's moveset is just a worse version of Zeus's, and Zeus could do next to nothing to Bayonetta's defensive options. So
like, yeah,
Baldur's not.
I would say multiple different forms of energy are going to be able to affect him and hurt him in a way that his immortality wouldn't even heal. So I would technically argue that Baldur would die without the curse even ever being removed, because most of the attacks wouldn't heal, and even then, I'd like I'd like to see him survive deconstruction. I don't think that's going to happen. Um, yeah, so Baldur, I'm going to say for the most part, is probably going to die. Which, if he does die, as you know, Fimbulvinter technically starts because when Baldur dies, that marks the beginning of Fimbulvinter. Though it won't start like immediately. Immediately, it takes a little bit of time. So we'll say that near the end of the game, Fimbulvinter will like, or as it gets near the later half of the game, Fimbulventor will start in earnest after like a few days or like a day or two.
We don't.
Um,
I mean, we don't actually have like a source of time for when Winter actually starts. I think they say I think they say that winter's kicking in at the very end of the book, but beyond that, we don't have information if that's like the start of Winter or if that's just like a random winter kicking in and then Winter just latches onto it.
that is supposed to be Fimbulventor, so it's like a couple days, but I'm pretty sure Bayonetta can get through the events of the game a couple days before Fimbulventor starts.
Bro, she'll get through this game in like 2 hours.
Well, so she'll just go inside and then get
Atreus.
Atreus and be like, yeah, so it's time to go find the highest peak in all of Midgar because apparently we're being tracked by somebody.
Well,
And
okay, so I think what the actual request is the highest peak in all the realms because that's when Mimir tells them at the top of the
well,
mountain that like, hey, go here.
I know. I say highest peak in all of Midgar because that's where they're going. Even though she's going to be saying highest peak in all of realms, we know they're going to the highest peak in all of Midgar.
Yes. So, do we include
Yeah,
walking sections?
there. What walking sections with Bayonetta at the helm? There are no walking sections. There's going to be running, flying, and jumping. And well, I mean, if it really comes down to it, she could just turn into a panther and have like Atreus ride her, and then she could just run to the village. So like, yeah, no, they're gonna. This is basically just gonna be God. Just imagine God of War 4, but someone took Kratos's model and then like modded in like Atreus's wolf form from like one of the games and like every single flight form from the Valkyries and just gave it to Kratos so he can actually just like no clip himself through the level. That's just Bayonetta.
So what's the next
Like she's not
major?
gonna have to deal with most of the puzzles because she's just gonna keep skipping areas,
So
heading out for the highest peak.
what's the actual next major area Bayonetta shows up in then? Because there's a lot of stuff that gets skipped with Bayonetta just not being forced into a walking section.
Yes, I believe she's just half the woods and mainly just the river pass. First journey, I believe, is on the way to the mountain, which the only real thing that you interact with there, aside from a couple creatures and Dragger, is like Brock, maybe like a troll or two.
So nothing.
But
Well, I mean, I guess the Brock interaction is technically substantial for later on, based on Ragnarok. But like for this purposes, nothing really substantial. Nothing to stop her.
no, nothing to stop her at all. I would say that the difference is that we'll just kind of skip ahead to the end of the Path of the Mountain quest, which is when they get to the base of the mountain with the Black Breath. At which point they'll realize like, oh, they can't get through this, and then Bayonetta will be like, yeah, that's kind of an inconvenience, and then she'll just grab Atreus and just jump around the Black Breath because, as you know, the Black Breath on the let me get a picture of it.
Yes, it only covers
Why
up that
are
one
you laughing?
specific pathway. And in a game where
Yes.
you could potentially jump, you could potentially just avoid the Black Breath in its entirety.
Well, technically, it is a little bit taller than that, but you do see that the Black Breath does not cover the entire mountain. You can literally see the walkway behind it from the picture. So she could just fly around it. Anyone who could levitate could go around it. Anyone who could jump really high could just go around it. It's not like this thing that's completely and totally enshrouding an entire like spatial area near it. Like you can just move around the Black Breath.
I love
Um,
democracy.
yeah. We will say though, on her way before she gets there, they meet Freya because technically, they do have to meet Freya for this outcome to happen somewhat. And we'll just say Atreus is mostly hungry as a result of we're traveling through the woods at such speeds, and he's just like, oh hey, I'm gonna hunt that boar over there, the same as he does in the game, except it's not Kratos that incentivizes him to do it this time. And the same outcome, same conversation happens. Freya takes it inside, heals it, and then they get the markers and sigils put on each other, and then they show up to the mountain with the Black Breath. Except this time they don't really go to Alfheim. Um, though we will explain how they get through the realms later. So they'll climb their way up the mountain, and basically they will then make their way to the top, at which point they'll just find Mimir. So then Mimir will just tell them like, "Hey, smartest man in all the realms. What do you need?" And Bale's like, "Well, we need to get to the highest peak in all the realms." Like, well, you're in the wrong place. You need to go to Jotunheim.
That sounds ridiculous.
So technically, there's two ways we can do this. We could either A, proceed with the game, or B, we could end it right here. Because when Mimir uses his Bifrost Eye to open up a vision to, you know,
Jotunheim.
Jotunheim, one could make the argument Bayonetta could just either use her portal hopping or could use Bazillions to bring them there. Because Bazillions is stated to have the power to get you through dimensions. So if he showed her a visual of what Jotunheim looks like, which he does with the Bifrost light, she could just be like, "Hang on, can you hold that there for just a sec?" Like, "Oh, sure." Like, "Hang on," and then just shoots a portal hole into it and just brings him to Jotunheim.
If Bazillions has that ability, wait,
It
is
does.
that stated in like a description for it?
Well, let me get you a
I
thing for it. It literally has the ability to jump through dimensions. It's just not something that you're given in game.
I was gonna say I've never heard that before. That
Yeah,
sounds
that's because you've never gotten the ability to use it in game. Let
uh
me.
the only L Bayonetta is receiving in this entire protagonist swamp run.
Is she
Uh,
receiving an L because she skipped the game? She's just a speed runner.
she's just a proper speedrunner, except she's not no fucking clipping the game. I would
Right.
personally
Here, let
say
me let me get to.
in regards to this one, even if she does go to Jotunheim right away, because again, keep in mind the final boss is dead. All that'd be left for her to do in actuality is just start killing Valkyries left and
Oh,
right.
so four guns created by an unknown super civilization powered by an energy source known as Bazillionum. The deep crimson flash from the guns instantly break down the molecular bonds within its target. Able to discern the intent of the user, it is said that these strange, miraculous guns have the power to open up a portal to another dimension. Thanks to Rodon, these guns have also gained demonic powers, making them incredible threats to the denizens of Paradisio. So it not only can open up portals to other dimensions, it can discern her intent. So
So
you could just say she wants to go
and
there,
it'll just create the portal to go there.
and it will just create the portal based on what she wants, which is easy to establish because Mimir not only kind of knows what Jotunheim looks like, he has a Bifrost eye that literally gives you a gateway visual of it. So she could just look at it and be like, "I want to go there."
Actually,
Brazilians is like, "Okay."
I'm gonna ask a simple question. Do we even need Mir to die in this one? I understand that Kratos himself can't break it because Odin can't, but they don't have access to anywhere near the amount of absurd weaponry Bayonetta does. Do, is there
Wait, what
like,
do you mean? You
well,
mean like,
I'm saying like, can't she just break down the tree with bazillions or something? Like, because like I don't think anything in the Greek pantheon
uh,
breaks down on a molecular level. Like, aren't there
we'll
arguments to
just
be
say,
made?
we'll just say that I would say it's more. I'm more comfortable with Mimir. As fucked up as this sounds, I'm more comfortable with Mimir having a head because that's
Wow,
what we see him as the
wow,
entire game.
wow.
It's not. It would not be impossible lore wise. No, I would say she could probably itemize the tree with bazillions. I'm just not
Go ahead.
sure
Go
because the
ahead.
thing is that
Tell the
he's not just
audience
a
you're actually a sadist and you like watching this fucker suffer. Go on.
well, the issue is that he's kind of merged with the tree though. Like he's fused with it.
Damn, if
It's a
only I
part of his
had a
body.
weapon that could discern my intent and could also do stupid shit like jump through
You're
dimensions.
you're telling me the Bazillions is gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna be like a fusion cutter where I'm gonna cut at the exact millimeter between your arm and the rest
If
of
it
this
can
tree.
already break things apart at the molecular level, you act like this is unreasonable. You act like my position is
He's
unreasonable.
he's fused with the tree. I
And
feel
I'm
like, well,
about
I
to
guess if you
play diffusion on his ass.
dude, I thought we left the Yu-Gi-Oh playing in the Dante protagonist swap. What the fuck?
It's okay. Bandit has a card
Man,
reader.
and it's just like it turns out I was a fusion player the whole time. Let's go, Bazillion.
I mean, Bayonetta 3 clearly supports my interpretation.
Fucking fusion players.
I don't want to fucking hear that from
Okay,
you.
so I guess yeah. So she probably could free Mimir. I'm
But
just more comfortable with him being ahead because I've seen him as a head the entire time. But yeah, if you want to say lore wise, like the full capacity of her arsenal, she could probably free him from the tree because she could just break down the molecular bonds of the tree, separate from each other. Bazillion knows exactly what she intends to do, so it could be very precise in doing this.
okay, now I'm gonna ask the question regarding
It's also made
Bazillions.
of two completely unique energy sources that none of the characters in God of War have interacted with. So there's no reason to assume any of Odin's spells would stop any properties of that energy source.
Okay, so now I'm gonna ask question number two. If Bazillions can discern your intent completely, isn't it possible that it could like sever his head without directly killing him? If it can already create portals between dimensions, like, do we even need Freya?
Uh, I don't think so because you'd have to argue that like the Bazillions would be keeping him alive. But there's no reason to assume like something that's breaking down his molecular bonds would somehow sustain his life force. There, because he doesn't have the physiology to survive with his head being chopped off. He's brought back to life via Freya.
Very well. I guess we'll say that, in exchange for helping them, Bayonetta slices off his head, but she fucks up and she actually gashes it repeatedly because she's not Kratos and doesn't do a clean slice. And we're
Oh my
just gonna do
god,
this.
dude!
It's just gonna be painful the
What do you
entire
mean
time.
she's not doing a
It's
clean
just gonna be
slice? She has
painful.
a sword
She's
that
gonna
can
fuck up
rip
because
out
she
people's
wanted to.
souls.
She's gonna fuck up because she wanted to look cool doing it, and she hits the tree on accident, so it fucks up the swing.
That
And
is completely inconsistent with how she. Whenever she tries to look cool, she never fucks up her
I'm
moves.
just saying,
That's
maybe,
literally all she does.
maybe she forgot how long Sharaba was, and she hits the tree bouncing back, so Amir's just in pain for the next
Why
30
don't you just
minutes.
say she swings it and like cuts off Atreus' head? Like why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I'm just saying, Mingler, if you don't want the man to have his body, it's not going to be a smooth trip for him. You want him headless, we're going to make him headless. Just not going to be quite as
Why
smooth.
don't we assume what Mimir wants is probably a little bit better at that point instead of just assume she'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna cut off your entire body.
No, she's cutting off just his
You're
head.
the one who proposed she could unfuse him from the tree.
You're the one. You're the one who
Why would we
doesn't.
assume she's gonna
You're the
destroy his
one who
body?
doesn't want the infusion. Now he suffers.
Okay, so if he gets unfused the tree, do we take him? I guess he takes him back to Freya, and then what? They go back to the same peak,
Well, I'll be
and then just go
honest.
to Jotunheim.
If they unfuse him from the tree, well, I mean, like, are we just not gonna say Bazillions ends it here? Are we gonna like go on a hypothetical that she just doesn't use Bazillions? Are we gonna continue it based on that assumption?
We will say that Bazillions technically can end it here, and she'll in that scenario she'll still we'll go on a hypothetical to show what the rest of the game has, but
Okay? Assuming they don't kill him. What do we even need to go back to Freya for?
if they well, so they would have to kill him
Okay,
because
okay,
he's being tortured.
okay,
So he does not want to live like that. He establishes that to Kratos. He's like, this is not living.
well, I mean,
Please
I'll
kill
be
me.
honest. He can probably hide from Odin. The protection stave was like keeping them like protected from Odin until it fell apart.
Oh yeah, no, like he could either travel with them or he could hide with someone else. Like that's fine. Um, I'm just saying, in general, they're either gonna have to kill him or like free him.
Okay, we'll just
Um,
we'll just kill them then, so that way we can continue working with your
what
scenarios.
isn't he kind of a valuable piece of information in Ragnarok? Like, if they could just free him, like why wouldn't they just free him?
I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, we'll say he gets free. He gets free. He gets either his head cut off or his entire body separated. Either scenario, the same outcome occurs, and well, I guess he just gets sent to Freya, but and I guess Freya could give him like a protection slave or something. But yeah, the short end scenario is that she can just have him open up a visual to Jotunheim, um, with the like to the Jotunheim peak, and then she could just use Bazillions to like BFR herself there. And yeah, the story ends there. Scenario two, we actually decide to play the rest of the game instead of just cheating with all this filthy speed running. Um, so What the fuck? For context, Zim was like, what are you talking about? You abuse jump cancel, like as if jump canceling is comparable to people skipping through the entire game. You stupid fuck. Okay, all right. We'll calm down now. It's time to go through the rest of this game. So I mentioned Alfheim kind of doesn't really happen here because, well, they didn't really need to go there. I mean, I guess they could get the Bifrost light, but like Bayonetta could just tell Mimir like, hey, um, or I guess Mimir could be like, oh, hold on, you have the ability to jump to like various realms. Be like, yeah, I can go anywhere as long as I have these guns. Like, oh, what do you need? Like, I just need a visual. Just you could tell me or you could show me something. Like, yeah, so we can just say like she doesn't really need the Bifrost light. So they'll probably just at this point pretty much probably just unlock the go and unlock the Lake of Nine just for convenience purposes in case something happens and they want to use it later. And then they'll go looking for the World Serpents, probably to get back his other eyeball. Though I don't know if they would even know that it's inside the World Serpent. Well, hmm. Does it have to be the Leviathan X, or can it be any other weapon? Throw your weapons in the water, basically. And something's it's like Atreus basically reads this inscription when they're in the water. He's like, throw your weapons in the water, and then like basically the world serpent like comes about and then spits out the weapons. So like I guess that would be actually kind of funky for Bayonetta because she has so many weapons. Would she just start like just chucking like dozens of handguns and shit off her body until she's completely weaponless? Yeah, she wouldn't travel on boat unless it was absolutely necessary. Yeah, so I guess the Lake of Nine wouldn't get revived then, because there'd be no reason for them to go out by boat, which means Mimir doesn't get his other eye back, which is inside Jormungandr's belly. Didn't they go inside Jormungandr to find it though? Yes. So isn't the statue still inside of him? Oh yeah, because it's on the coastline. They summon him out to. Hmm. Well, they only found that out as a result of like I think some conversations and long conversations with Mir about the nature of like where Tyr's travel room and stuff happens. But like I think Mimir, given his intelligence, would probably abandon all present pursuits of Tyr and things like the Unity Stone because, well, aside from the fact that this is kind of why I said like if we don't sever his head from the body, if we just take his entire body, then he'll have his complete and total memories. So he'll just be like, well, if you could just jump between dimensions, then there's no reason for us to use Tyr's temple because you can just take us there. Um, well, it I know. Mm, not entirely. So he wouldn't be able to guess where the eye is because he's told this information out of an inference based on what Brock and Sindri tell him. So Brock and Sindri point out that Odin at one point basically wanted to pay them to basically like commission them to make a statue. And they declined it because they don't like the Aesir, and they're just like, hey, it's not a weapon. Why would I waste my time on that? But Odin was obviously very insistent about it. But they would kind of have to have a reason to talk to Brock and Sindri there. And in this case, Brock is only someone that they would have met. Sindri, I don't think they would have even interacted with, because again, the only reason they're interacting with Sindri is because of the Leviathan Axe. Whereas you could argue they met Brock without the Leviathan Axe, because technically there's a scene where they're crossing a bridge, and Brock just happened. Well, actually, wait, that might not happen either, because Bayonetta could just panther within around the bridge. Sure. I mean, I guess that's possible. Like, if you argue he has his whole body, because the main problem with Mimir throughout the game is that just because you severed his head, his memories are not completely intact, and they have to come back to him over the course of the game. So if he has his full body, his nervous system and his brain wouldn't suffer any sort of like memory loss or any sort of like weird recursion. So he could probably, with his full facilities and knowledge, figure it out eventually. I guess for the time being, what would they just be doing? Like walking around like Midgar? Oh yeah. What Zim is saying is basically like there's essentially already a win con because Bayonetta can already bazillions them to Jotunheim. Baldur's dead and he's the end game boss. Magni and Modi are probably not going to show up because they only arrived once Baldur figured out where the missing giant was located, and he went back to Asgard to report it in after Kratos quote unquote killed him. But that's not going to happen because he actually died this time and he didn't go back to report that, which means they would have had to figure out after the fact. And if they figured out that someone killed Baldur, especially if they killed him as easily as Bayonetta did, they are not going to send Magni and Modi because Magni and Modi are going to be fodderized. They would be sending bare minimum Heimdall, if not just flat out Thor. Um, Based on how they perform against Kratos, I would not say they were stronger than Thor. Baldur being stronger than Thor? No.
He's misconstruing my words. Don't listen to him. He's a liar.
He's saying don't listen to me, but it's not like you could listen. Not like you could listen to him anyway. So listen to me. um, I would not say so. They'd have a better arsenal. Like Magni and Modi would definitely have like maybe more like tactically effective weapons than Baldur because they at least have like electrocution. They've got like some stealth things that they can do with there's clouds and like equipment and whatnot. They are able to ambush Kratos and Atreus in that one room. They're more effective tactically as a unit, but they're less powerful. Um, I would just say that I was just going to swing that like because I have to explain to them because they can't hear you. Helheim is not getting visited because the only reason they go to Helheim is for, well, on two reasons. First reason is that Atreus falls ill as a result of them fighting Magni Modi, but Atreus is not going to get that emotionally involved and use Spartan Rage because, well, first of all, Bayonetta is like not that close to him. Even if he was, Bayonetta is never going to be put in a position of disadvantage to the point where he's going to get that emotionally involved. Um, so he wouldn't have to use Spartan Rage. Not to mention, Bayonetta could just give him a really good fucking weapon or something. So he would, anytime he fires or attacks, he would probably just one shot most things he sees. Uh, that and they can just speed run the game so they don't have to deal with the most conflict in the game. Um, and then the second reason is just pretty simple. Baldur's dead. So they get sent to Helheim in the game as a result of Baldur showing up and breaking the Jotunheim gates after they get the the black stone that the giants held inside Tyr's temple. But obviously they didn't do that because they had no reason to go on the boat, and Baldur's still dead, and they can also go to Jotunheim, so there's no reason for them to go to Helheim. So Helheim just does not happen. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. So even if we don't have them jump to like Jotunheim immediately and they free Mimir, I guess they would just be on a quest, a side quest to figure out his like eyes, and then maybe fight the Valkyries. But like, would they even have a reason to? But it's not going to be on the way though. They can leave to Jotunheim at any second that they want. Like, yeah, yeah. Is Beta freeing the Valkyries? I don't know if that's going to happen with her. Well, she doesn't even know their son is dead. She might assume, but no, the Valkyries do not get freed. You are correct. Mm, yes. This is quality fine content with me just talking to myself the entire video. Are they really that important during Ragnarok? Uh, no, no. So for context, guys, Zim asked me, we have to cover the Valkyries because they're important during Ragnarok, and I was like, are they really? Because they just show up and like, yeah, they're just like basically glorified aerial troops. They're not like they're. I, I'm gonna be honest, they're more important to the nature of the cosmology, but like Bayonetta hasn't gotten Atreus invested enough in the world because I don't know if you've been noticing this, but she's speed running the game. She doesn't spend any time in the world. What truth bomb? What nonsense? Point is that Bayonetta is not there for long enough, so she would not care, and Atreus wouldn't care. The only reason Atreus would care is because they have so many walking sections. So he has to spend so much time paying attention to everything. There are no walking sections when you're with Bayonetta. They don't get fucked. They're just sealed there for a while until maybe Vimbleventer, because Vimbleventer does break down like the properties of magic and whatnot. So probably say that during the events of Vimbleventer, the Valkyries come out. At which point the Valkyries side quest will just happen during Ragnarok. Or I guess before Ragnarok, but during the Ragnarok game. I know. We're rewriting the story here and now. There's there is not really anything else left to cover. Honestly, it probably could have ended when they met Mimir. They could have just freed him and been like, thank you, sir. Be on your way. Like, and then just left. 25 minutes. Good. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much everything here to cover. So after after they have like the night with the dream or whatnot, then Bayonetta is gone in the morning, and then Kratos wakes up in the bed. So what will happen is because when basically Zim is asking me what happens when we what do we do when the protagonist characters get sent back? Because canonically in this scenario, what's happening is that each of the hack and slash characters are getting BFR'd out of their verses into other verses, and they're being swapped with each other at certain points. So some of them are kind of aware, but also not aware of what's happening in these events. So in Kratos' perspective, he'd be getting yoinked out of the scenario that he's doing in like 4 or 5 or whatnot in the DMC verse, and he's just getting pulled into this one. um, so he would not be aware of the events that happen in 4, but that does not matter because he has the entire Fimbulvinter winter to reconnect with his son. So yeah, he'll be like, "Who are you, random head?" That would be kind of funny. Random head on a person's body. Hello, Mimir. Uh, yeah, you'll have to tell me
Okay.
when we're closing out the video because they can't hear you, so they just hear me talking to myself. No, there's really truly nothing that can be added, honestly.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about me dipping halfway through because of my surrounding areas. Couldn't really talk too much at this point. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on the next streamer video. Take care, everybody.